Right now, you are living through the birth and rapid evolution of a new kind of intelligence, AI.
Rival tech luminaries who have already reshaped our world are in an arms race. Recent polls suggest 70 to 90% of all CEOs plan to invest heavily in AI behind them.
The numbers are staggering, amounting to hundreds of billions of dollars in the next few years. Governments and regulators are stepping in as well, setting the stage for a global paradigm shift.
But have you stopped to understand what AI really is? Are you prepared for a world where AI will impact your job, your health, your relationships, and maybe even the nature of your humanity?
I'm Charlie Stack.
I am Lax Srinivasan. We believe your success, our success, depends on us starting to have a different set of conversations about AI.
Join us as we get to know our new neighbor. Welcome to the machine. In a world where every click, purchase, and conversation leaves a digital trace, our personal data has quietly become one of the most valuable currencies in the world. Every minute of every day, data about you is being bought, sold, and exploited to target your attention, predict your behavior, optimize and personalize your experiences. You know those annoying cookie permission windows that pop up now every time you visit a new website? They're there for a reason, but if you're like me, you scroll through the privacy policies without reading them. You've accepted countless permissions to track and monitor your data without really considering the costs or risks embedded in that consent. Today, we've got an opportunity to help you think about what you're giving up. We're going to talk about privacy. Why does it matter? Is there anything we can do to protect our data? And how do we think about ownership rights in a world where the monetization of our data has become a really important component of economic growth? Joining us today is a longtime friend and a true thought leader in the space, Wes Chaar. After practicing data science in the real world for decades, Wes decided to author his first book, Data Independence: Reclaiming Privacy in an Era of Evolving Tech. It's just been released. You want the quick crib notes? This book challenges the status quo of a world where we all assume we have to give up our data for free. And it presents some new and compelling ideas for a future where AI works for us because we have more control over our personal data. This is a great read, especially if you're like me and you're still holding on to your undergrad philosophy chops. It clearly explains why data privacy is so critical to the continued health of capitalism and democracy. It presents a really clear vision for an AI-centric economy with more transparency and where data privacy is protected as a fundamental right. Wes, welcome to the machine.
Thank you for having me, Charlie. I really appreciate the invite. Good to see you guys.
Always a pleasure, man. Tell us.
And congratulations too. Congratulations too on the book.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations or condolences, Lax. It's I know it's been a labor of love, Wes.
It was how do you say, an opportunity that knocked on my door to say, hey, we hear you have different ideas on topics of technology. And I was like, okay, well, let me write it. It's not only in my circle of friends, correct, that I talk about these things where, you ideate, and I thought, what, this is an opportunity. Why not put these ideas at the forefront, correct, to try and get, in some sense, a conversation started, a conversation that includes not only the technology people, but really people from all walk of life, because this is a topic that impacts everyone. So that was really one of the motivations of me writing the book, because I wanted to put it and start a national conversation, if not even a world conversation in some sense.
Yeah, where do these ideas come from? I mean, I've known you for a lot of years as, somebody working in brand name companies that we know every day,
yeah,
doing this work. But this is a different way of looking at the world.
Yeah. So the way it happened, it happened incrementally. It's not like, I start doing data science and working with data and then I realize. But incrementally, if I'm thinking of my career, Charlie, correct, started in the airline industry. We're doing revenue management, all the data is in buckets. But as you started, year over year, move from the airline industry to advertising, media, marketing, CPG, retail, Technology is evolving. The level of granularity of data is changing. And there is a point where you realize, as you're doing these incredible things, oh my God, we're servicing the customer, we're doing this, we're thinking we're doing all the right thing. But then there was this aha moment, maybe I'm going to call it correct. There was an aha moment in my career where I remember I was creating this idea, this algorithm that will not only put the context of an ad for someone, but also could predict their feelings. And I remember at that time, I said to myself, this is too much. For me, and of course, the individual, we're not using PII or things like that, of course, within the allowed legal frameworks, but then it tells you, even if, this person is masked, correct, was an entity, who am I to even know or can predict with some certainty, correct, of what this could do to what type of whatever. And there was this aha moment to start thinking, there must be a better way. And the better way is to rethink, there are two entities, economy. The economy is hungry for this data and will continue to be hungry for this data, let alone with AI. So when I was writing this, it was before, a lot of the AI stuff, were coming up. But obviously, but we knew AI was there, the generative AI and other AI pieces that even made it more pressing why I wanted to write that. Because there is other things that I'm concerned about, especially in the AI space as we go forward, that you may hear about. But going back to that aha moment told me, okay, well, let's stop playing this game. The economy needs this data. And then the individual needs to participate and know really what's going on. And they need to decide, whether they would like to participate or on which terms they would like to participate. But the main thing is that also hit me hard with that example, that aha moment, is that, I felt like privacy, although it's masked, there isn't really no more privacy, that we really lost our privacy along the way. And actually, my personal belief, is that it's not really about more legislation to say what you can and cannot use of data. It's really to give back the data to its actual owners. Is your DNA yours, Charlie? When you go to a place, does someone pull your blood and say, well, I want to know your DNA too? This is your digital DNA. This is no difference, because this data is capable of mapping you out in behavioral, in feelings, in choices, in propensities to do this versus propensity to do that. This is what I call in the book, in many ways, the digital DNA. So if this is your digital DNA, let's have an honest conversation. This is your data, you, the individual. You decide clearly, not by traveling the web and I'm accepting this, or I'm driving my car, I don't know how I'm being geolocated, correct? Or I'm passing a digital sign on a highway, it already probably can track me. And this, it has come to a point where, it's 1984, but it's not with the shackles and whatever. It's just, I'm going to call it a soft version of 1984.
Wes, in some cases, it actually is even your DNA, right? I was reading speak about, the uncertain future of 23andMe.
Yeah.
And in that case, the data actually is your DNA.
Yeah, I mean, I did put that in the book, how even, 23andMe, even their data got hacked, and there was a targeting of Ashkenazi Jews and people of Asian descent, which was really very scary. Like, I mean, so the point is, this data has to be secure and it has to be in control of the individual. So the question, how do you go about it? Really, this is the question. So the way I thought of, I'm sorry, go ahead, Max.
Yeah. So Wes, can we, get to the why? I mean, if this is at the end of the day, as you said, it's about every one of us as individuals, right? So the question is, if we're all living in the matrix and we're also used to, kind of having everybody else having the data, so why, other than a few of us that know the power of all of this data, but everybody else is sleepwalking. So why is this an issue now? Why now?
Two things. Number one, I don't think people are aware. So the idea of the book is to start a conversation, to educate. So for, like you said, Lex, those of us who are in the technology world understand them. But to put a book in, I promised my mother she's going to be able to read the book and understand what I've been doing the last 20 years, 24 years in technology. And so the idea really, the reason I'm giving the example of my mom is to be able to say she wanted to understand the topic. People really want to understand the topic. So that's number one. And yes, they are maybe walking not knowing. But also number two, with the advent of AI, not to jump there now, I think people should have a data vote, which is one of the topics I bring up in the book. And what I mean by a data vote is say in where their data they want it to be used for the purpose where they would like AI to go. So these are really two main things. And the third thing, and when you start having your data vote, and you decide how you want to put your data and with whom, correct, and how. And we can talk about that. It's not like every company has to call you. I have a paradigm that you're familiar with by reading the book on how you would do that. There is a potential that by putting this data, taking it away from those walled gardens, correct, from all the big companies and putting that in the hands of the people, then the market has to compete for it. And if the market has to compete for this data, they're going to have to pay for it or find a relationship, whatever that relation. We can talk about the aspect of currency, because currency is not necessarily only money. And then it generates potential wealth, correct, for the individual. So it is making the individual sovereign again, because they lost their sovereignty with the advent of very sophisticated data technology along the way. It is about, honestly, protecting our freedoms and freedoms that we cherish in this country, that I know all of us cherish. I haven't met anyone that says, we don't cherish the freedom. And I don't think they're realizing that if we don't own back our data, freedom is at stake in some sense. If someone can predict my behavior, my choices, or isn't literally in my head, correct, about the things that I'm feeling, reading, observing, thinking about, I lost my freedom. And no one needs, a surveillance, correct, of market over us, unless you decide, and that's perfectly fine. If you decide you want to do that, there's nothing in the framework that says you cannot make that decision, but you can make it on your terms, because it is your digital DNA, it is your sovereignty. That's really the whole idea. So that's the way I would answer it. So first, it's to open the conversation to beyond the technology people, and have really a national conversation, I hope, around the topic.
And one thing that may bring it home, by the way, is, I don't know if I just saw this yesterday or so on YouTube. Some student hacked the Meta glasses. Have you seen this?
No, I haven't yet.
The Meta glass, right? The latest thing.
Yeah.
And some student in some university hacked it, and he was wearing it, and he was able to pretty much identify every single person that's walking across the street and just bring everything about them and having conversation as though that he knows that person. And it's essentially, you could dox anybody.
Wow.
Because that's not what it's for,
Yeah.
Meta says that violates the terms, but I think that just tells you, if this is all out there, then it could get into the hands where you truly do not have any privacy.
Yeah.
God, I could use that. I could use that at work. After you meet your like 5,000th person, it starts to become hard to remember. But it's almost like it's the realm of like, this classic question of, if you could be invisible, would you want to be the only human being on the planet that could be invisible? It's almost like a superpower at that point.
Yeah.
And, and I think like classically, like there's a lot of, there's a lot that would be problematic about having that kind of power, being able to go surveil things without anybody knowing that you're there, that sort of stealth capability. And this is, it's a similarly scary notion.
Yeah. And Wes, maybe kind of, so if we agree this is something we all should care about, and to some extent, as I said, some of us feel helpless because it's just the price you pay for using an app, for using a device. It's all subsidized, and that's why we're conditioned. So is part of your kind of thought process is, if you care, you don't need to feel helpless. This is something you can take charge. Is that the thought here?
Well, let me address it this way. I don't think the change will happen overnight, correct? And taking charge just because of in some sense, the legacy of how we got here, correct? So the first thing that I do in the book is to put the framework. If you don't mind, maybe let me describe it, correct? Perhaps
Sure.
to your listener briefly, because then I'll get back to your question on how we can approach that, Lax. So the framework is simply to say, to protect privacy and hence freedom that we cherish, data consent, data control, and data currency should be in the hand of the individual that owns this data. We'll talk about how that will be in a moment.
So the three C's.
Yes, the three C's. So consent is about I gave permission, control to someone, an entity or set of entities. Control, I can change my mind at any point in time, revoke, adapt, whatever may be the case, that consent. Currency is about, I call it currency your data. It's a new verb, Charlie. I just came up with it since I wrote in the book. And what I mean by currency your data is how do you want your data to be used, correct?
Yeah.
So that's what currency your data. And also could mean what's in it for me potentially. But then, so this is really the C3. The thing that I would love from a national standpoint, from the federal government really, is not actually more laws. I would love basically that those C3s be protected by the following framework: transparency, accountability, protection, equality, and respect, what I call TAPER in the book, for everyone who's making those decisions on the C3. Now, how is the C3 enabled is this whole concept of the personal data vault key. The data vault key is not only your online, whatever, and I mentioned in the book, it's your online and offline transaction. People don't know if you go buy a box of cereal that you bought physically in the store, the data is there. Someone has it in your digital dossier. If you drove your car, depending on what you allow, whatever, either your car is listening to you, by the way, there is a lot of articles recently about even, the car manufacturers getting into the data business. And then, how is that? So the point is, it's every aspect of your digital dossier. Now, to go back regarding what I think I heard you, Lax, asking, to make that change, that are really, in my mind, to enable this personal data vault key. By the way, the personal data vault key, you decide. I may, for example, and I'm not talking here politics or anything, but let's just say someone is interested in their data being used by companies that are green. So maybe they'll go to a broker in the marketplace that's green and then give them the key. Versus someone maybe who's not interested in anything green. That's fine. It's their choice, their freedom. They go to someone else maybe, and someone maybe goes to another broker. So the idea, there is a marketplace where these keys perhaps are used or given for entities that can basically respect the C3 that the individual wanted, but also the staper. So what we'd like, in my mind, from the federal government is this concept of transparency, accountability, not more laws, accountability, protection, equality, respect. Because I believe more laws, there's always a loophole. Did the laws get us anything the last 25 years? No. We lost actually more privacy and more freedom. Oh yeah, we're not using your PII, but we're calling you ABC123. Oh no, we're not going to call you ABC123. We don't even name your name, your whatever, or your hash, whatever, because we found a new way of fingerprinting, correct? So this data is not even relevant. So the point is, technology continue to advance. There's nothing like an honest conversation, correct, between the entities. And by the way, I don't portray in the book that the companies are evil or this and that. No. I am a solutionizer at heart. I'm a guy who likes to find solutions. My engineering background, my computer science, my aerospace, I like to find solutions. So the point is to put that solution. Now, that's personal data vault key, Lax. There are two ways. The way I think about it, do you go, I'm going to call it a top-down approach. So what I mean by a top-down, policy is changing, whatever. Yeah, you could, but that's going to take time because there are technology that needs to change globally, correct? Laws across whatever, et cetera, et cetera. So that takes a while. And I'm not saying you shouldn't pursue that, but there's also a bottom-up approach, correct, that we can think of. To change the word, you start with a use case, correct? by demonstrating something somewhere to say, hey, listen, we changed to this new paradigm. It is better for all of us. Come along, correct? And I'm not saying you should not continue the top down. The way I foresee it is that to find use cases where this framework could demonstrate, it's very viable in a particular beachhead, I'm going to call it, correct, or a use case that we want to land on, but at the same time have this national conversation, correct, and hopefully global conversation where the change is also coming up from the bigger companies realizing, this is a better paradigm for all of us, for the things that we care about, from policymakers and others. So I see it as a two-tier approach, but to wait only from the top down, my concern is we will miss the opportunity to demonstrate, correct, with partners in technology, with partners in business. Look, we use this new framework. It is much more open with the individual. Look at the great results we got, and look at a small use case at a beachhead where we proved them that. Yes, Charlie.
Like hypothetically, make this real for us.
Okay, so one example.
What does the first beachhead look like? How do you get that?
Well, yeah. So one thing I've been thinking about, you've heard of open banking and what's going on with open banking in Europe, where basically, individuals have the right to take their data and fundamentally decide how to use it. That resonated for me personally. That this is one potential use case. Maybe the European market is the first place where we start, or maybe other companies here in the US. So that's one example. The other thing that I want to highlight, although the book is designed to talk to the individual and the personal data vault key is between, it's in the hand of the individual. There is nothing in the book that doesn't allow also that personal data vault key is actually between two business entities. It could be between business entities that want to exchange data in secure ways, in different ways, etc. So there is really two possibilities. The first one at the individual level or the consumer level, the open banking one has resonated to me, and I've been having initial conversation with some folks about that and they say, wow, this is in Europe, could be, but also with the advent of AI and etc., it could be even more interesting. But other people understand now that the concept is not necessarily a B2C only, but it's actually a B2B. The same framework works also for B2Bs. So this is where I would go with those two, B2B use case and B2C maybe in the financial space.
We probably have a lot of American listeners. Take me a level deeper into open banking. So what does that look like? What does that mean?
So open banking in Europe, is fundamentally is that the individual has a right to share their basically banking data with the entities that they would like. So they can take this data, this is their own, and then they can decide in a way, in a framework, with whom to use it. So here we don't have that yet, but we could use the PDVK, correct? The idea of PDVK in a European market where this is already to say there is a framework, where this data basically can be managed with the personal data vault key within the framework of C3, etc. So we can demonstrate why that framework would work. So that's what we're talking about. In the United States, no, we don't have yet, but there is some discussions. People are talking about it, but we're nowhere close, on that. In a funny way, it seems the Europeans are always seems a little ahead than us Americans on those topics. And then my friends is telling me, maybe you should start this launching of this thing with the European companies, because I think it could catch up, with some of the concepts that you're proposing. Yes, Lex.
Yeah, in the US, I think maybe something that may, I don't know how well it works, but I mean, healthcare data is supposed to be like that, right? It's my data. If I go see another doctor, I can get this hospital to send this doctor to send the health data over there, right?
Yeah, and in the book, I create 5 characters just to demystify some of the technical details, and I create 5 characters. And one of them, a character called Rose, he came up with a random name, but to say exactly that, her healthcare data, and then she owns the PDVK with her healthcare data, and she decided to do something for research, etc. That's actually a very good point, Lex. And in the healthcare space, it could be that this is the launch, because today we own that data, correct? This is your data with your whatever. Healthcare data, to your point, which I put in the book, is possible, is another possibility in the United States, certainly, for sure.
Yeah, and Wes, are you So what you're saying is that the individual own the data and they have the agency um, to give access to it, as you said, with consent, and then with the right under my term, and then there's something in it for me. I may say I contribute this data for, global good, community good,
Yeah,
greater good. It could be anything, or it's something that it come back in now. The question is, let's talk about beachheads, right? So I think I can see the technology, I can see all of that. The the thing is that how do you? I mean, the hundreds of billions of dollars, is at stake here, right? In this data economy, maybe trillions. The question is it essentially an individual movement? Like, what sparks it? What is the thing that sparks this, in your opinion, or what would it take for
uh,
this to get traction?
well, you see, the thing when you think about why things happen in legislation, it always happened because we had an issue that came, correct, and made the news, and it became a PR issue, correct. So I hope we won't get to that point, correct. But there is already quite a bit of discussion, Lax, correct, about AI and the concern about the AI. We don't want to wake up one day where AI is doing things we never really wanted, for it to happen. But if we don't have those conversations, we will get to a point where this happen, and that could be a spark. My hope is that we don't get to those where we have an issue, a crisis, or whatever, and then, oh, we need more legislation. I'm simply trying to start this conversation to say, we don't need to get to that point. Let's start by rethinking the model. But again, I'm a solutionizer. I want to find solution. I'm always interested in trying to prove it, in this bottom-up approach that I was just describing, rather than only waiting for things to come from top down, from legislation, from policymakers, etc. They are partners. They should participate, of course. But I'm saying again, it's a two-way street. But if we wake up one day tomorrow, let me give you an example. And let's just say someone says, "Oh wow, what people talk about, what they're afraid of AI." I personally think, not that I had talked, with Bill Gates or Elon Musk, but you say, "Oh, the end of humanity." They talk about that, correct? What I think they're talking about is that when AI system, I think, I'm not going to speak out there, but my understanding, I think, is that when AI start talking to AI to create new AI. Do you think this is a dream, or do you think this is possible? Let me ask you, Lex and Charlie. Do you think like this is an imagination, or this is real?
I think it's already happening.
Actually, I'm going to tell you a story. This happened 27 years ago, not in the realm of generative AI and the AI that people know about. Here, Wes Chaar, Wasim Chaar, the legal name, wrote 2 papers 27 years ago, 26 years ago, where we did this. Let me explain what we did. Before starting my career and my journey in the data science and the data world, my PhD is in aerospace engineering. I don't know if you've, maybe I think I mentioned to you once, Charlie. And I worked at a lab in Austin, Texas, wonderful lab called Center for Space Research, which was a subcontractor for Jet Propulsion Lab and other labs for the federal government. The idea was, you know what? We have so many engineers and we have less budget, and how we're going to figure out all these algorithms, the right algorithm. Wes Chaar created population of algorithms that could talk to each other and create new algorithms on their own. This is done 25 years ago.
Yeah.
We know how to make adaptation. I mentioned in the book, adaptation, I have that phrase somewhere. Adaptation is possible in artificial systems. When we start talking not about navigation algorithm that doesn't impact you or impact me on a daily basis. I mean, this is a spacecraft traveling to Mars and beyond our solar system. We want this capability, correct? We're not going to call Mother Earth to figure out where to do whatever. You want this capability of autonomous navigation. When it becomes to us, we, the individual, you, Charlie, your family, Lax, you and your loved ones, don't you want to have a say of where this AI is going to take you in your daily personal life? I would say, you know what? Maybe I want to have a say. And I think in the book, in chapter 7, I think, yes, 774, section 740, if I remember correctly, I put an example, a hypothetical example of someone who wanted, to create an AI company I call it MRI. Funny, correct? Mind read insights. But they wanted to collect all the data to understand all the intrinsic things that happens in humans' brain to drive, bigger value in understanding individuals. And people data voted in that scenario, in that hypothetical scenario, that they don't want that. That no matter, what the company was willing in that hypothetical scenario to pay, to incentivize, they didn't have enough data, because AI needs what, Charlie? A lot of data, correct? That people made at the end of the decision, they data voted to say, no, we don't want this technology, because this is not, something the individual that care about privacy and freedom want to do that. So that's the whole idea. So adaptation is possible in artificial systems. We know that. People talk about it. Certainly the people that are very knowledgeable in technology, that I mentioned, way more than me. But I know even from my own experience that I could get algorithm to create new algorithm. And it's even a little interesting if I add one more comment very quickly. And then the way these algorithms did this, Charlie and Lax, you coded the algorithm into genetic code. The parameters of the algorithm were coded in zeros and one, and these things will cross over and mutate and create new algorithm even better than the previous one that they started. I mean, this is real stuff. So imagine that into our daily lives, where AI can have this capability and no one had a conversation. So bring the data back to the people, make the people data vote.
Yeah, Wes, it's I think for most of the world, it's probably not something that you need to imagine. If listeners watched, that hot movie, The Social Dilemma,
yes,
a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
there are real examples of how,
correct,
machine algorithms that are talking to each other, that are using our data that we don't understand, are very much shaping, our experience of the world and who we connect with and when. And so it's not something you have to imagine, I don't think.
No. But the idea is let C3, let people own the PDVK, let them make that call. This is not to say, no one should be doing this. No, people are free to make their own decision. Give
Wes,
them
like this, this sort of like, if we call it like, the governance framework side of this, taper, as you say it, the sort of multi-level, rules behind this. I mean, how does that get enforced? And I like the notion of, a solution that doesn't require, I mean, look, how much faith do we have in our legislative bodies at this moment in time to come up with a viable solution to problems like this, given the current political state? I mean, so it's very enticing to think about, a solution that, but at some level, I mean, as I think about that, that multi-layered approach, like how does that accountability structure get actualized?
Okay, so let's talk about it. Let me start first with the SEC as an example of an organization, correct?
Yep.
That makes sure that when you're investing your money in Wall Street, in your 401k, in mutual funds, whatever, you're buying a stock, whatever, that also that the companies that you're dealing with are keeping their part of the deal, correct?
Yep.
So that's we already do that in the SEC space with our financial work, and it works really, really well.
Yep.
The FTC today, the Federal Trade Commission, is trying to do a lot of that, but it's working from a legislator hat rather than saying, give back people's decision to make those investment decisions of data vote in them. Let me just be concerned that these entities, that the consumer, the individual, did their C3, gave their PDVK, their personal data vault key, are consistent by doing transparency, accountability, protection, equality, and respect, which is some of the same thinking that the SEC does with our money, correct? So it's really rethinking that to say, I mean, I actually even talk in the book that I would love the FTC to become not the FTC, but the Federal Data and Trade Commission, because data is behind, commerce across, all state line, and it's really a federal issue. not a state by state patch issue. But back to your question, we have success. We know what worked. We know the SEC and how great, job they do, correct? Whether it's insider training or someone bought into something and it wasn't, and they come enforcing. But they enforce what? The transparency, the accountability in some sense, the protection of the individual, making sure that there is equality and respect of that person that put their money, that invested. So they already do that. They don't call it taper per se, but I could describe it as. I'm suggesting that, but think of, rather than money, data, and which is the agency. And I'm not saying it should be, but I suggest in the book that it probably, in my personal opinion, a natural candidate, a la SEC, is the Federal Trade Commission, because they are also the company today that are dealing with the data issues, trying to do this and trying to do that. But they're thinking from a legislative mode rather than a restructuring a la SEC. Give the data back. Your money is in your bank, correct? It's not in the government's. The government
let's not try to write a bunch of laws. Let's just start with the fundamental premise that each person owns the data. That's the law.
Yes.
And from there, whatever that body is becomes is an auditor or a policer of that fundamental privacy right that we each. And in some ways, it's a compelling idea because the SEC's job is difficult. Very difficult for them to know, as a, for instance, Wes, if, you come over to my house later tonight and give me a stock tip, a lot of the stuff that they have to police may not have quite the same data signal. In this case, really any of these major systems that are exploiting our data are like just fully audited. I mean, it's just data. The data is just there.
Yeah, and I think in the few minutes left, what I would say is, Wes, you said you don't need more regulation, but in the SEC example, all of these firms, brokerages and banks, they all have to get a license to operate versus a lot of the data brokers, they don't need a license to operate. So I think there's a little bit of a paradigm.
No. I love this. I addressed that in the book. Okay. I remember, I came up with the random name Harold. I have a friend called Harold, but I wasn't thinking of him. I hope he doesn't take it the wrong way. Sorry, Harold, but I use your name.
Sorry, Harold.
I said, Harold, Uncle Harold cannot start a data business from his garage. The point is, there need to be, some regulation about, who can start a data business, because really it's about the brokerage firms of the data. They have to be able to follow that transparency, accountability, protection. So protection also means like security, correct? Equality and respect. So there's a lot of things that they have to be, to your point, Lax. It cannot be, the wild, wild west. In the same way, not anyone can open a bank today, correct? There are whatever regulations. So I agree with you, but that's within the same framework. Yes.
Got it. And so maybe, so if it's been a great conversation, we could talk for a lot more time. Just kind of bringing this to kind of an endpoint. So Wes, what is, I'm giving away something here from your book. So what is your dream? What do you want out of this? So if somebody listening to this says, wow, I want to be the first person that uses this vault and I want to be part of this movement, what do you wish? What is your dream? What do you want to do? What is the call to action?
So I do finalize the book, correct, Lax, with this, the dream, about where I would love maybe for us to be. It's an aspirational thing. Do you mind? I'm just going to read a couple of phrases, if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
Just
story time with Wes.
Sorry, Charlie. I'll be quick. But the thing that I would say, I have a dream that from every corner of the world, each individual, regardless of their location, will stand equal and sovereign in their digital presence. So imagine a world where everyone has that. Because this key will not only unlock the potential of data, but will serve as a data vote, enabling every person to shape the AI-driven future. That's what I love. And the one thing I'll say later, very quickly, because the idea, we collectively as humanity, correct? As humanity, as us Americans first, and hopefully the whole world, that we will work together, vote together with our data, because that really becomes a data vote, maybe as powerful, more powerful than every 4 years vote, and shape the future of AI together, knowing that our collective data vote guides us towards a future where technology serves humanity and not where humanity serves technology.
I love it.
I can't think of a better quote to end on.
Yeah,
Lax.
and I was just thinking
we didn't plan that, but that.
Yeah, I was just thinking,
Amen.
Charlie, that Wes, had Martin Luther King's speech as his anchor. I was just thinking I was going to take us back even earlier to Abraham Lincoln, perhaps, and say data vault of the people, by the people, for the people.
And
I don't
actually,
think that's in the book, Wes.
And I do put that in the book, that it is actually the data of the people, by the people. I do talk about that.
There you go.
So you mentioned Abraham Lincoln and MLK Jr., two of my heroes and people that I revere very deeply personally.
Yeah,
Four and 3 C's ago.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I think Wes, I know in the world of AI, and I think this is an important, I think, as you said, conversation individually, nationally, and globally. So thank you for bringing this to light, and I think I know this will take many more conversations.
Well, thank you for the invite, and thank you for providing me a forum to bring this to a conversation to your audience. And thank you very much, Lax,
Wes,
and thank you very much, Charlie.
I can't even imagine writing a chapter of a book. I don't have the attention span, but I really appreciate you putting in the energy to put these thoughts in the world. I think they're really important thoughts. I'm very excited to see the book at the top of the Amazon list over the last week or so here as you've released it, which is really, really cool. So if you're listening, please give it a read and tell your friends. And thanks so much again for coming on. Thanks for listening to Welcome to the Machine.
To join the conversation, visit us on welcometothemachine-ai.com.
Special thanks to Spencer Stewart, the Return on AI Institute, and our fantastic production team, Trey, Jojo, and John, for helping bring WTTM to life.
Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe.
See you next time.